A very good morning to everyone listening in. Welcome to our virtual Ring the Bell for Gender Equality event, where stock exchanges from various countries come together to raise awareness on the role of business in driving gender equality. This year, more than 100 exchanges worldwide will be holding a bell ringing event to celebrate the International Women's Day. The theme that has been chosen for this year's International Women's Day campaign is Choose to Challenge. So let us all work together to raise awareness and drive collective action to create a gender equal society. This will be Bursa Malaysia's fourth Ring the Bell for Gender Equality event. This is also the second year we are launching the Equality for Equity campaign. Without further ado, it is my honor to invite our CEO, Datuk Muhammad Umar Swift, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Dina. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this virtual event, Ring the Bell for Equality for Equity. We're delighted to play our part in raising the awareness on gender equality. Specifically for Bursa Malaysia, it is about promoting equal access for every person to opportunities in the stock market. We're constantly looking to strengthen our Malaysian stock market to make it more vibrant and robust. Increasing the participation of women retail investors is one of our significant priorities. According to McKinsey study, global GDP could be increased by $28 trillion by 2025 if women participated in the economy on equal footing to men. At Bursa, we have a long history of advocating gender equality in the marketplace and the wider community. Some of our efforts include education and advocacy sessions for investors and public listed companies, supporting global efforts with our participation in Ring the Bell for gender equality, our support for the Women Empowerment Principles since 2019. We also support women charity beneficiaries through our flagship Bursa Bull Charge Run. Internally, within Bursa, we continue to enhance our workplace environment and empower our staff. Our efforts have been recognised with our inclusion in the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index 2020 and 2021, but more needs to be done. While we continue with our efforts to reduce gender inequality gaps in the workplace, the fact remains that globally the investing population still remains predominantly male. Our data further supports the claim that women only make up 39% of retail account holders in the Malaysian stock market. Hence, we initiated the campaign, Equality for Equity, to help reduce the gender investing gap and increase the participation of female investors in our stock market. We have seen positive results after the campaign was introduced, with new individual CDS accounts opened by women growing by 68% in March 2020 as compared to March 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to keep the momentum going. As we raise the torch for International Women's Day 2021, Bursa will be hosting a series of events and activities throughout the month of March. We start with today's panel discussion entitled, She Invests, Seizing the Opportunity During the Pandemic, where leading women in the financial sector will share their thoughts and experiences on the role and investing opportunities women can take during the COVID-19 pandemic. We bring back the CDS fee waiver campaign, where Bursa and our participating brokers will waive CDS account opening fees for women during the month of March. This year, we have 19 brokers collaborating with us. As part of the campaign, I encourage you to visit the Equality for Equity campaign microsite, where you can test your financial literacy levels, explore educational articles, videos, and weekly webinars. For those of you who are not investing in the stock market yet, I hope you will leverage our Bursa campaign to help you kickstart your investing journey and achieve your long-term financial goals. Before we proceed to the next agenda item, let's take a few minutes to enjoy the short montage we put together with the support of our stakeholders. Only by working together to raise awareness for gender equality can we collectively achieve equality for equity. On that note, I wish you Happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
I support.
I support.
I support.
I support.
We support. We support.
We support. We support.
We support.
We support.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umar. And so thank you everyone for submitting your video messages that enable us to create our very own Ring the Bell montage. We received 50 creative videos from our brokers, financial institutions, public listed companies, community groups, many others, as well as from individuals. The support means a lot to us and we really appreciate it. In conjunction with the Equality for Equity campaign, from today until the end of March, Bursa Malaysia and participating brokers will be waiving the CDS account opening fees for all women to encourage them to start investing in our marketplace. So please spread the word to your friends and families. To learn more about the list of participating brokers and other activities we have in store during the month, please visit the Bursa Marketplace website. Next on the agenda is a panel discussion that aims to dive deeper into the topic of gender investing gap. The topic of the panel discussion, She Invests, Seizing the Opportunity During the Pandemic. The dialogue session will be moderated by our Director of Securities Market, Azhar Muhammad Zabidi. At Bursa Malaysia, Azhar is responsible for primary and secondary market development, retail and institutional market development, digital development, Islamic market and product development, and the Labuan Financial Exchange. Joining him in the discussion, strong lineup of seasoned finance professionals. First up, we have Ruzi Rani Ajit, CEO of CGS CIMB Securities. Ruzi has worked with CIMB Investment Bank in various capacities over the past 23 years. She has consistently been featured in Asia Money's Brokers Poll, where she was ranked number 2 for Best Salesperson for Malaysia from 2003 to 2005. Next, we have Angelia Chin Sharp, CEO and Country Head for Malaysia, BNP Paribas Asset Management. Angelia is a seasoned capital market professional with over 20 years of experience in banking, capital markets, and asset management. When not wearing her corporate hat, Angelia serves the community through the Lost Food Project, where she is the president and founding committee member. We also have Alison Askerson, Vice President, MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. Alison is an experienced international development executive, having worked for 17 years at the intersection of development and finance. In more than 30 countries, she has built a track record by cultivating strategic partnerships among governments, private banks, foundations, and impact investors. With that, Azhar, over to you.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Dina. A very good morning, everyone. On behalf of Bursa Malaysia, I'd like to welcome everyone who's tuned in and thank you for joining us to ring the bell as Bursa Malaysia celebrates International Women's Day, where this morning we'll be discussing She Invests, seizing the opportunity during the pandemic. Now, over the next hour, we'll be talking about how all you ladies can seize the opportunity to achieve financial independence and how you can make the time to invest. This morning, we have three amazing ladies who are leaders in their respective fields, each of them representing a very specific segment of the financial services industry. These ladies will be talking about not just investing, but they'll be sharing their perspectives, their insights, as well as their personal experiences as we uncover the simple steps toward financial independence and the ability to take control of your finances. Now, before we begin, allow me to quickly talk about where we stand in terms of women's participation in the stock market to set the stage for this morning's discussion. Based on the latest statistics, some 32% of new retail investors who registered to trade on our market in 2020 were women. So it's no surprise that women's participation in the stock market has grown significantly over the last year or so. So much so, women made up 39% of retail investor accounts in our market as at the end of last year. During the year, women contributed 28% of total trade value by retail investors. Now, while men remain in the lead, this is a significant change in the right direction and clearly demonstrates how the level of activity among women investing in the stock market has grown, especially among 35 and 39-year-olds, as based on the demographic statistics that we have. This segment today commands more than 12% share among women investors. Now, historically, research suggests that women are more risk averse. And what this means is that women do invest but are less prone to taking risks. To support this research, studies reveal that women who do invest achieve better returns overall. For example, a study in 2015 concluded that on average, women only lost 2.5% on the value of their portfolio, while men lost close to 4%. That's almost double. Now, studies further indicate that while women invest some of their assets in the stock market, women are more likely to keep a significant amount of their assets in cash. This leads us to believe that women may be more likely to invest in conventional savings or perhaps collective investment schemes that are generally regarded to be safe investments compared to the stock market, where investing, well, some people consider it to be more volatile as the price of stocks tend to fluctuate. Perhaps more importantly, conventional savings and collective investment schemes do not require regular, constant monitoring, which may itself deter women from investing in the stock market, given the attention that it requires. Now, let's find out how our guests think about these behavioral patterns and other key considerations. Good morning, ladies. It's great to have you all with us. Now, let's go back to basics with our first question. Now, what do you think is the main contributing factor to the gender investing gap? And why do you think it's important to bridge this gap? Ruzi, shall we start with you?
Yes, good morning, Azhar and everybody. Um, for me, I think one of the factor would be wage gap, due to the fact that average women make only 80% of man's salary, and full-time women need to actually invest greater percentage of their paycheck in order to earn their investment as compared to the male counterpart. On top of that, women are less likely to negotiate for pay raise and also motherhood penalty.
Angelia, your thoughts on that?
I agree with Ruzi. I think pay gap is something that needs to be addressed because if you don't have the financial independence, then there is the lack of ability to actually invest. But importantly, maybe culturally also, you see a lot of women tend to always, when they have the income, they tend to pass on to their spouse or their partner in terms of a joint account, in terms of managing the finances of the household. I think it's quite important that women needs to be empowered as well in terms of their own financial independence. Therefore, having their own individual savings, apart from the contribution to a joint household expense is important. But having the ability to also have their own personal savings and grow that, I think is also a very important agenda to be addressed.
Thank you. Alison, your thoughts?
Well, I couldn't agree more. I look at them as two different buckets, right? So you have the structural challenges, which Ruzi had pointed out, certainly around money, available money, the wage gap. I think also in that structural bucket, there is the lack of access, the lack of knowledge and information, fear or unawareness around the resources that might be available to educate and empower women so that they can take that first step. And then the second bucket, as Angelia already pointed out, are the cultural factors. How do you start to encourage an environment of calculated risk-taking, educated risk-taking that empowers women to set their own dreams, financial dreams, and really take action to achieve those?
Got it. So really, in order to empower women, one of the key steps is really about educating or bringing the skill sets to this segment of the market. I'm going to go to the second question. The presence of women in the capital market space, especially within the broking and asset management industry and the broader financial services landscape, of course, as a whole is considered to be very low. Could this be a reason, the lack of women participating in the stock market? Alison, can I go to you first?
And so I think that's true. I think that the role of mentors, the presence of women leaders can really influence, particularly early on in your career, which career path you want to pursue. And so having more women leaders who take a prominent role, having men who are advocates for equality can really open up space for participation and then pursuing those correct professional pursuits.
Angela, I think you're raring to go, right?
Well, I'm not too sure whether there are, lack of female in the finance sector because I don't know when I go around in the finance sector, be it banking or asset management or stockbroking, I do see a lot of female workforce in those financial institutions. For me, maybe I think when we talk about the ability to invest, we come back again to the disposable income and the income that you have. I think it's also important to address the pay gap, like we have discussed earlier, because if we address the pay gap, then we will have more disposable income at our hands in terms of our ability to invest. And I think the important topic about investments is also that you don't need to have a lot of money first to say you start your own saving schemes. Every little from the beginning is an important step forward for you to build your own financial nest. So today there are a lot of opportunities for you to do that. Maybe not straight away with 100 ringgit to go into the stock market. I probably do not advise anybody to do that. But today you have the unit trust funds, which you mentioned earlier, that you can actually start your investment with 1,000 ringgit and then follow up with a top up every month of 100 ringgit, which at least to start something first, build your nest, understand investments before then you go into the stock market in terms of making your own decisions on your own investments. I think that would be a good start for everybody.
Thank you. Right. Ruzi, this is going to be interesting. I mean, having a common history between the two of us, CIB, for example, has always been known to have a lot of leadership positions held by women. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, I agree that, and I echo what Angelia has said. We see a lot of women professionals in the financial industry, and but we don't see them at top levels because I believe that women are not visible, especially the middle level women. They do not push themselves forward. And are always, underestimating their own ability, their capabilities, their achievement, and as what you call Sheryl Sandberg said before that women always sit at the corner and they do not sit at the table. So I think that's the reason why you do not see women's visibility. And as for stock market participation, it is more of an entrepreneurial nature. And I see, like Angelia said, women maybe will invest more indirectly into the stock market via unit trust. And also studies have shown in PRS, private retirement scheme, women tend to put more money into that compared to their male counterpart.
That's very interesting. Before I go on, I just wanted to remind everyone who's tuned in, if you're viewing this panel, we will be taking on some questions at the end of the session, so please feel free to post your questions. Now, on to question 3. The number of new CDS accounts opened were noticeably higher in 2020. Amongst women during the pandemic and consequent lockdowns, we experienced that more ladies are participating in the stock market. This has been a huge improvement. So what do you think is driving this change? Angelia?
I think the thing is we have already mentioned that today women coming into the workforce more, that's for sure. Therefore now today women has income at least to do what they want to do. Last time during our mother's time or grandmother's time, most of the time the women are the one who stay at home to take care of the household. But today we recognize also dual household helps in terms of family as well, and that's why women are coming into the workforce. And because women are coming in the workforce, therefore there's the opportunity for them to look at investment, whether be it investing directly into the stock market. So that I think really helps that we today have income, women has income, there's an empowerment. And I think the conversation that we have this morning is a very important conversation because it actually discuss about the empowerment of women coming to the workforce, the empowerment of women in terms of their own financial independence. And I think this is a very, very valid, and timely conversation that we're having. And the fact that we can have this conversation to challenge, gender equality gaps in terms of income, gender opportunity in terms of employment. I think those are very, very important conversation for us so that we can have this today, the opportunity to have financial independence, which is very important for the future.
Can I go back to you, Alison?
Sure. So I completely agree with the availability of disposable income to be able to invest and start to plan for the future. I think one of the things that's changed of late and certainly is driving this is the availability and access to networks, whether it's the financial tools that fintechs have been creating that just open up and make it easier to think about investing. And so some of those barriers that may or may not have been real, but were at least perceived, have started to dissipate. And I think also the availability of knowledge. The World Bank has shown that across the world, financial literacy has improved, and now really our task at hand is how do we get to financial usage. And I think that that's where you have greater understanding, and now you're starting to see greater participation in the stock market, and really that continued push to see how do we get there, and how do we drive to parity would be amazing, and continues to be amazing.
Ruzi, your thoughts?
Yes. During this pandemic, there is a silver lining that we've seen, and that is innovation. And how did we transition working from office to working from home, and also with that, with digital revolution, women have got more access, as our ladies have already mentioned, to the stock market. On top of that, there's availability of robo advisors who give you investment risk profiling for your appetite. Sophisticated trading platform which enhances investors to invest across border on trading platform, online trading platform. These are all factors that have drove more people or more women to participate in the stock market.
Absolutely. And of course, we at Bursa Malaysia believe that providing training, education, and the right tools is the first step to providing investing public with the necessary skills to invest. But is there anything we're missing? Now, this time I'm going to ask the next question specifically more towards Ruzi and Angelia. The question is, Bursa Malaysia has introduced various exciting and very interactive tools to help beginners learn to trade. For example, MLT, the Mirror, Learn and Trade, which is designed for beginners to mirror and monitor the professional trading approach of licensed investment advisors who typically build, strategize, and manage a virtual stock portfolio. This is experimental trading at its best. What are your views on copy trading, though? Perhaps Ruzi first?
Copy trading is actually good for beginners, but copy trading cannot be done blindly without asking questions, leading, and the thinking behind the investment for these young investors or for the novice. Also, I think what we should include is coaching, mentoring, and philosophy of investment, as this will help investors to preserve their capital and saving against inflation and savings for emergency. So it's not blindly going into copy trading, but with a thought process behind it and the risk attached to each investment.
I do echo what Ruzi say. As a fund manager, we do recognize the importance of doing extensive analysis and understanding of a company, and we, and I think that cannot be done just by just mirror trading. You really, in any investment, needs to understand what you're investing in. Every investment has its own risk, whether be it bond or equities. So that's quite important. But the good thing, like what my fellow colleagues here have said, is that today there's a lot of access to information available, whether be it through the digital platform. You can also, when you switch on to the TV, you also get a lot of information about companies. On top of that, you also have the Edge Media, who has a good coverage of investment ideas, including companies and discussion about governance of companies, which are also very important. And of course, I have to give credit to the regulators like Bursa Malaysia Securities Commission, who has also done a lot of work in terms of educating the general public, not just about licensed professionals, but also the general public about understanding risk investments, securities, fixed income. I think those are very important start that you have done an excellent job, and I have to congratulate all of you on this.
Thank you. I'm going to go straight to the next question, which is really the biggest question to me, and I can't wait to hear your responses. In addition to persistent pre-existing social and systemic barriers to women's participation in leadership, New barriers have emerged with COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in unpaid care duties. Now, globally, women and girls are responsible for 75% of unpaid care and domestic work in homes and communities every day. The International Labour Organization calculates that on average, women around the world perform 4 hours and 25 minutes, 4.5 hours of unpaid care work daily, compared with men who spend slightly less than 1.5 hours daily. Economists refer to this as the third shift, which refers to the undervalued, unpaid emotional labor that is mostly taken care of by women. And despite claims that women can have it all, this aspiration is regarded as a myth among many women. Unpaid care responsibilities have a negative and measurable impact on women's participation in the paid economy. So, as a woman leader yourself, do you find it particularly challenging for you to have to juggle with work and home duties and so on and so forth? How do you make the best? How do you make time to invest rather? Alison, can I go to you first?
Oh, that is the $1 million question, and it is so
It is.
hard. I really think that we have to think about what are the enablers of work-life balance, and I look at it as three different levels, right? Or the three different approaches that we need to think about. So one is certainly from corporates and what can corporates do to facilitate work-life balance for individuals, and particularly for women. And at MasterCard, we do a lot around flexible schedules, even before COVID, and certainly committing to closing the work pay, or I'm sorry, the gender pay gap. But I think that there's also economy level changes that can be done, where you start to think about entrepreneurship, skills building, and certainly at the individual or at the cultural level, where you start to think about how do you just simply ask for help? How do you um, how do you balance within your household the different tasks that need to be done? And living in Asia, there's certainly the benefit of having some help that can help distribute some of those tasks. But I think as a family, we need to be asking each and every family member to do what they can, and that you don't quietly sit and try to do it all by yourself, but really do call on others to support you.
Rosie, your thoughts?
Yes, as Alison has said, work-life balance is very important. On top of that, I think, as a woman leader, you need to prioritize, compartmentalize, and focus on your job, and also as a homemaker when you're at home. Capitalize on or leverage on digital revolution, mobile apps, e-payment, to do other chores. Also need to establish a very good networking within the community for support, and also social network groups. But one of the other more, not last but not least, good family support and equal partnership with your spouse is also very important.
Absolutely. Angela.
Well, I'm a mother of two young children. My children are 7 and 11, so I do a lot of juggling in my work. And before the COVID, I also do a lot of traveling, required by my job. And I don't say it as a chore or a task. For me, it's something that I'm very proud of, and I find very enriching. To be able to nurture my two children. I hope that they will grow up to be really fine people. That's what every parents want to do, and I'd agree. And I think with this pandemic, it has actually proven to many management that we are able to operate even from working from home, enabling our employees to do what it needs to be done in terms of having to contribute to work while also to take care of our family needs. And I think that this I speak for not only for the female but also for the male. Like what Alison say, we also need to count on our spouse, and sometimes because sometimes we need to travel, then when we have children, young children at home, sometimes our spouse may need to play the other role of even the ability to work from home if they have to take care of young children. So I think the enabler is already there out, and we need to change our mindset in terms of how we actually perform our work today. It's not that you need to be in the office to be efficient. We can already shown in this whole year that we are able to close deals. We're able to do a lot even from working from home, and we should do that. There's a lot of family emergencies that can happen that is beyond our control, and we need to be flexible, and we need to understand the needs of our staff. So I think is something that we need to change our mindset for us to be able to balance all this. And for women, I do agree. Not just a lot about all this flexibility. I think for us, it's not also reliant on our family. Of course, our domestic help that we have in Asia, which is really useful. But I think women should also reach out to their friends, to their female counterparts as well, for support. A lot of times I also, make friends with school mummies, because that helps you to back up in the event there is some emergency in schools and you need, someone to help you to logistically to help you with your children. I rely a lot on my friend network to also support me in, while I have to sometimes have emergency meetings that I need to do. So I think those are very important. Reach out to your community, be it your home, be it your family, be it your friends. I think all those are available for you. It's really up to each and every one of us to be able to reach out to those help that's available. Do not take it all on yourself, because you can't handle it all on your own. You definitely need all the support, and you all should do it.
Absolutely agree. Setting aside money as savings is important, but investing helps battle the effects of inflation, grows your personal net worth over the years, prepares you for what lies ahead, including things like tertiary education for children, helping aging parents, and of course, your own retirement. Women shying away from investing can have devastating effects on building wealth over the years. Many tend to think that they have plenty of time to invest later in life, but waiting takes away the power of compound interest. What are your thoughts on this? Can I go to you, Ruzi?
Yes, agreed. Uh, investing is very important because it has got the element of compounded interest, which offsets the inflation cost. And I think financial literacy is very, very important at very early part of our education. Probably we need to introduce that in our school curriculum, and also not having that knowledge. Sometimes people do use credit card loans to invest, which they do not know the consequences of high interest rate charges and things like that. And another factor, being able to have your financial independence at a right age, at your prime age, maybe 40, 50, would enable you to enjoy life to the fullest. So shouldn't wait till very late to invest.
Absolutely. Alison, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Right. How do you start to invest early in children so that they are aware and have the financial literacy skills that enable them to be investors later on? We have a program that we run, which is called the MasterCard Girls for Tech program, where we deliberately pull out girls ages 8 to 16 and really focus on STEM education, including the financial and digital literacy piece, because we fundamentally believe that if you have financial literacy as a stepping stone, that opens up the opportunity for financial activism, which then it results in financial security, which is everything that you said before, right? How do you pay for tertiary education? How do you pay for health bills later on in life? How do you retire comfortably with peace of mind? How do you weather unexpected global pandemics? All of those things require that you have a savings base, and that savings base is wonderful if it's in your bank account, but it's even better if it's an investment that's growing that helps to hedge against that inflation risk. And so really tying it to early on making those investments and growing and adapting with folks along the way, we think it's incredibly valuable.
I think this pandemic has also taught us a lesson, where, we thought that at times where we have stability, and then it can just rock our whole, stability without us noticing this. And I think we have seen during this pandemic where, we have seen friends who have stable jobs who suddenly are out of job. or out of income or have
Hmm.
income slash. And if you see that if you do not have this financial stability or at least a financial nest or some level of savings that you can reach out to tide you through in this 1 year, and now we're talking possibly of 2 years before we see some normality back. This is, something that it's a wake up call for us to actually, show the importance of having a side savings, and savings I think is so important where you have liquid savings and also the illiquid part of the savings, because even in these times, suddenly if you have no liquid savings, you have a problem too. Right, you need to be able to, in your, investments, to look at the asset allocation in terms of what you need in the next 2 to 3 years, which should not be invested in something so illiquid that you can't get out of. Like property is something that is very difficult to get out if you need the money. And when the economic environment hits you, these are the most difficult assets to actually offload at a good price. So those are the things that we need to, assess when we talk about investment. And I think this pandemic is a good wake-up call for us to address this. And the good thing in Malaysia, at least we have EPF, and you can see, there is the opportunity now where you don't have the savings that the government allows you to dip into your EPF to tide you through in the coming months. But the thing, this is not a long-term solution. So you still need that kind of liquid savings available for you to help you through in any emergencies, be it pandemic or otherwise.
Absolutely. Before I go to the next question, I just wanted to mention we're getting comments and obviously questions from our audience. This one comes from Roslina Laikoi. I think women are also able to manage money to be invested into the market. The challenge is they need to have sufficient knowledge about the risks and the rewards. Something to think about as we go to our next question. Now, we've talked about the necessary skill sets to actually provide for the empowerment. Now, what can the government, regulators, and perhaps more importantly, employers do to encourage women to take charge of their own finances and investment? In other words, what else can be done? Would you like to go first, Angelia?
Oh, better pay, of course. Better pay will help us to have more money to do what we need to do. Second, I think we've addressed about, the whole pandemic, showing that there is the ability in terms of flexibility at work that allows us to juggle between home and contributing to the economic environment. And I think the third one, I think, again, knowledge, we talk about this in terms of knowledge, but I think in any investment, everybody needs to remember that, investment is not short term. So if you think you're going to go into the stock market and have a quick gain out of it, I'm not sure whether that's the right mentality. And especially if you're busy juggling between home and work, I think having a short term mentality to investment is very, very risky. What you need to importantly understand is what you're investing in. If you really, really don't have the time to do that, there are other platforms to do that, like, like I say, unit trust funds, appointing portfolio managers to do that for you. Even insurance, they have all these investment linked products where you can, balance between managing the risk, through the insurance as well as investment through the investment linked product. So there are a lot of avenues for you to do that. And if you really can't do that, I don't advise somebody just go into the stock market for the sake of doing that. But importantly, make sure you understand how to do the investments properly.
Can we go to Alison?
Yeah, I wonder if one of the things that we should start the conversation around is investing toward goals. So to Angelia's point, you're not going to become a billionaire tomorrow overnight just because you got lucky. And that you really should be thinking about that medium term, longer term strategy, the balancing of what's liquid and illiquid, and saying, if you have a goal, right? Is your goal wedding? Is your goal educating your children? Is your goal retiring, and looking at some of those longer term goals and saying, well, what will get me there, and how do I need to think about investing to get me there? Both the mix of investments that you might want in your portfolio, but then also the cadence at which you need to think about investing so that it's not one time and you walk away with all your hopes linked to just that.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ruzi, your thoughts?
What regulators or government can do further is to protect retail investors' interests, have a very robust committee to look at it. Also, robust collaboration in reaching out to B40 women on financial freedom campaigns across all social economy, such as International Women Campaigns Day. I think collaboration is very important, where everybody comes together and propagate that agenda.
Absolutely. This next question is really more to do with the stock market. So I'll focus on Rosie and Angela. What are the top 2 to 3 things perhaps that need to change to bring some equilibrium of retail participation in the stock market and bridge that gap? Your thoughts, Angela?
I think like what Ruzi mentioned, importantly is to have outreach programs to reach out to women of various backgrounds. Like she mentioned about B40, of course, with the B40, when we talk about investment, not exactly directly, I mentioned coming straight to the stock market and opening a CDS account. I think if you don't have enough income, there's still the opportunity, but not directly going into the stock market without understanding, because that doesn't provide you diversification in terms of risk. And I think unit trust funds are still the better avenue for those who don't have a larger pot of money to invest. Information access, we have already mentioned that there's a lot of information access, but then how to make sure they're getting the right information. There's a lot of fake news and not fake news. And I think helping investors to understand governance of company. And again, I think the regulators can play a part in terms of the governance of the public listed companies, in terms of the information that they share, to make sure that the information gets out, it's fair and accurate to investors to make sound decision. And access, today we have a lot of digital platforms where you can actually trade online, but I also feel that a lot of these online platforms probably needs to improve in terms of some of the platforms. It's not you don't get some of them I've seen, you don't actually get 12 years analysis of company or 12 months analysis of company. I do see that they do have access to research now from their own research department of the stockbroking companies. Those are already a good access for them to better understand the companies. And today companies publish all their annual reports on time, which they can access to. So I think those trees are already there to help bridge, but probably we need to improve it better in terms of
Always, yeah,
accuracy, helping people to understand the information. Starting young, we talk about starting at school to teach people to understand investments. Those are very important access for us to teach the young to start looking at investments.
absolutely, absolutely. There's always room for improvement. And before we go to our last question for this session, before we go to the Q&A, I just wanted to bring this into the picture because we received this question, which I think is very relevant to what we've just said, what we've just discussed. This question comes from Shima Rashid, I believe. As a layperson in the community, how can I reach out to the networking and education programs for investing as a novice? Now, obviously, this is more a question that's directed to us here at Bursa. Let me just say that Bursa Malaysia has rolled out Bursa Academy, which is an e-learning platform, which is free for everyone, be it novices or someone with a certain amount of knowledge and experience in investing. So please visit www.bursa marketplace and bursaacademy.com. Yep. I'm going to go to the last question for our session before we go into the Q&A, and I'm sure there's lots of questions coming. This one is more on a personal note, I suppose, and just to get a feel of your last take or final take on this particular area. Do you have a personal investing story you would like to share with our audience? Perhaps I'll go to Alison first.
Sure. I think like one of the most important things that I've done with my children is we've sort of set out goals with them where we had a moment where we talked about goals and or financial goals and how do you think about money within our own household. But now that my daughter is turned 15, we've given her a little bit of money for her to start to think about investing and to get into that habit of understanding and researching, trying to figure out where would she want to place her money, what companies does she like, but then also getting her excited to be able to track the highs and lows of the way that stock moves. And with the goal of giving her hands-on experience while she's still in our household and before she becomes an adult, hopefully setting a future path where she will always be engaged and always be thinking short-term, medium-term, and long-term about her financial security.
Maybe I'll share my story. I think with me, when I first graduated, the first thing I did was to buy insurance because I thought that was really important because you never know if you have an accident or something happens to you and you might have a problem in terms of no meeting the cost of health. So I bought insurance for myself, and of course I upgraded it as I continue to increase my income level, and I did the same for my children the minute they were born. And of course, I'm in asset management, so I invest in unit trust funds for sure, and I also invest in property. When I think importantly, always invest in what you within your means. Okay, like what Ruzi said, do not lend money, borrow money, do not use your credit card. I think always invest. Start with what you have. When I started my career, my income was 1,600 ringgit. I think all of us know that. When we started, our income was really low. But there's still the opportunity to do the savings, be it, start with a policy, an insurance policy that is tailored around your own income level. Start with, like, say, unit trust funds are very easy. 1,000 ringgit and put aside 100 ringgit every month, and then buy a home that is within your means, and you can upgrade that as you move along in terms of your career. And that's what we did. We upgrade our property, we upgrade our investment, we upgrade our insurance policies as our income grows with us. So there's no saying it's too early to start. I think the minute you earn an income, there's the opportunity for you to start the saving and adapt that according to your own means.
Okay, am I back on?
Adruzi?
Yes,
Welcome back.
definitely. I echo what you said, Angelia. For me, saving mindset.
Wait.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sorry about technical
Okay.
problem. We had a slight we lost internet.
Oh,
Okay, I take it that last question. Has everyone actually had a chance
No,
to
Ruzi is
answer the
going up.
last question?
okay.
Ruzi
All
is
right,
sharing
my
her
turn.
experience
Susie,
now.
you're on.
Okay. All right. For me, saving mindset stems from home. To live within your means has always been, our mantra. Where my parents have always ingrained it on us. Always save first before spending, and prioritizing your needs and wants in life, and to always have a financial goal and work towards achieving it. Most importantly, believe in delayed gratification. So from young age, we've been lucky because when I was young, I always had a saving account. But in 1981, when the government introduced ASB, all the kids in school, the Moving Putra kids in school, were encouraged to open ASB accounts in school, and that sparked off my dollar averaging investment. And at all birthdays, cash gift, rewards from doing well in school, additional pocket money has always been put into ASB rather than in bank, due to the compounding dividend, and the funds have grown healthily over the years. I also advocate the same to my kids and practice the same, and they all have got their unit trust ASB accounts since they were young. So that's my investment story.
Thank you. Angelia, have you, sorry, I don't know whether you've spoken or not.
Yes, we have.
Yes, you have, which brings
Yes,
us
thank
to
you.
the Q&A session. Okay, we have questions that's coming in from the audience. Let's start with the first one. How should women approach their direct supervisors who are predominantly male, women that is, are seeking leadership roles in the company? This question comes from Michelle Pehua. Anyone want to have a go first?
I love that question. One, because you're deliberately realizing that leadership doesn't just naturally fall upon you, but that you need to take action and you need to step forward and raise your hand and lean into the conversation. I think For me, what is important is that you've done your homework. You know what you've accomplished over the last 12 months. You see the opportunity. You have demonstrated that you're willing to go above and beyond the call of duty, and you go in prepared and ready to say, here's what I'm asking for. Here's why I believe I deserve it. Here's how I've proven and can demonstrate that I deserve it. And here's where I think that my potential is and where I can go with you as a company, and that we're in this together. And I think that really believing in yourself and having done your homework can help assuage some of the sort of natural angst of going in and asking for greater leadership roles and the commensurate salary that goes with it.
Absolutely agree with Alison.
Angelia?
No, I agree with Alison. I think that you have to make the brave step yourself. You can't wait for a letter to come to your desk and say, hey, you get promoted. You should be brave enough to have this conversation. And I think today a lot of companies provide the kind of environment and platform for staff to engage with their bosses, or if not with their HR. And I think companies should also think about how they also make it easier for employees to come forward. And of course, like what Alison said, you don't just come forward without doing your homework. You need to also know what you can bring to the table in terms of the conversation, in terms of how your own strength and your own experience and your expertise can contribute to the better good of the company. I think those is something that you should be able to have that conversation. And if you don't, and if the company doesn't see that positive, then there's no harm to move on. For me, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and you should be brave to also make the decision. If that company is not giving you that opportunity, that you should also move on and probably seek better opportunities elsewhere.
Actually. Ruzi, your thoughts?
I think what those two ladies says is very, very important, but also you need to build a relationship with your bosses, build a bond, build a trust, because your boss need to know who you are, and your boss um, need to know your credibility, because when your bosses put your name forward, they need to have that confidence that you can deliver, not only from your experience of performance, but also you're someone that is trustworthy, integrity, you have integrity, you have credibility for your boss to push forward. So I think building the relationship is another factor that we need to inculcate if you want to step accent in your career.
Absolutely
Yeah, I
agree.
think building network is very important, and that network is not just within your company. And I think when we talk about this important conversation that we have discussed earlier, it's also your networking with the various stakeholders within your company, because you do need champions to champion the work that you do. So, and it's not just your immediate managers, but people around your company, either be from other departments, including bosses above your bosses. So you do need to build that kind of network internally yourself, especially if you're working in a large organization, because if you work in a large organization, it's very difficult for someone to actually see the good work that you do. So building that network, it's quite important as well for you to actually develop your own career in an organization.
I think that's so true. I
Absolutely.
think you want people to say nice things about you when you're not in the room. And I think that's also the idea of network. You want a group of friends who love you, but are also supportive and push you to take that risk. So to Angelia's point, if your company doesn't want to promote you or doesn't feel you're ready and you're thinking, should I go someplace else? Who are the stakeholders in your community, your family, your friends, maybe not family, because family always wants to do what's least risky for you. But who are your friends who are going to sort of challenge you and say, yeah, you can do better. I'm with you, right? And I can help you network and identify other companies where they do recognize your value.
Yep. And if you're not ready, having the conversation with your HR and your immediate managers is very important about what are the steps therefore to prepare you for them to see that you're ready, right? So that conversation is very important as well. That the company also have the responsibility to invest and nurture you to prepare you for that role. So yeah, be open with those conversations with your HR as well as your immediate managers.
Yeah. Remember, mentoring you can find anywhere, but to get a sponsor is not easy. So you need to,
That's the hard part.
strategize. Yes.
Absolutely. I just wanted to highlight an observation from one of our audience members, Zahiran Abdul Halim. She says, my team recently did a research on undergraduate investment literacy. Consistently, we find gender differences, and male students have higher investment literacy and are more likely to adopt stock market investing. Perhaps women are naturally risk averse, something that we established a bit earlier. But anecdotally, she says, they are good at managing money if they have the necessary knowledge. I believe they will be empowered. Happy Women's Day. Any thoughts on that?
Well said.
Totally
Absolutely.
agree.
We've got one more question from Rosemary Coop. How can we engage or reach out to the younger women? Now, this is interesting because obviously these days we have situations where people are approached, and basically there are a lot of scammers out there as well. So without sufficient knowledge, without sufficient understanding, it's very, very easy to be, well, persuaded by the not so good people. How do we reach out to the younger generation of women?
This platform is a perfect example. What you guys are doing at Bursa Malaysia is a perfect example of a good start of how we are going to reach out and empower women, having this very brave conversation to get people started to think about themselves, whatever the gender they are or race or no, everybody has that equal opportunity to do what they want to do, and we should empower them with education. We should empower them with this conversation that we're having this morning, and we should empower them with all the digital platforms that's available today that they can actually access to.
Absolutely. And I think that having the conversation around the negative things that are out there too, the possible downfalls, is part of that education conversation, right? So the increase in global scams or threats has gone through the roof. It was high already. And then with COVID and everybody working from home, that the creativity of thieves has been remarkable. But to have that conversation up front so that people realize where the risks are is a part of that education process.
Yes. And also, make yourself equipped with risk reward knowledge. So in any investment, there's always risk attached. So with that, always take a calculated risk entering the stock market.
And don't be gullible.
Absolutely.
Okay, a lot of times we see a lot of people fall and become prey to a lot of these scams because they're too gullible. There's no quick buck out there, right?
Yeah,
If
there's
there's
no
going to
quick
be
buck.
quick buck out there, all of us will be very rich, right? There's a lot of hard work needed for us to grow our investment properly. Even for us portfolio managers, when we invest in a portfolio, we have, let's say, 50 stocks. I'm not going to get 50 stocks right? There's going to be an opportunity where I'm going to get maybe 5 stocks that I'm not going to make money. That's the reality, right? So we should not be gullible. There's no easy buck out there. Everybody needs to work hard for, for their money. That's the reality.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We have
Believe in delayed gratification.
delayed gratification. Okay, we have another question. Slightly going back to what we discussed a bit earlier. What are the particular opportunities that you see presented itself during the pandemic, from your personal perspective? This comes from your who? Anyone want to have a go first? The opportunities that presented itself during the pandemic.
Well, so before, my job is a regional job, and I traveled a substantial amount. And I have a family support system that enables me to do that. And while I love traveling and I'm sad to not have that piece, an opportunity that's really arisen is the new ways in which to engage and to establish rapport with partners and customers in ways that before were unthinkable. That you could have virtual meetings for the very first time without having met somebody, and I think that has created more time and space to do more creative things within my own remit that before I was spending on an airplane and trying to get someplace.
Absolutely. Actually, I mean, I know, Angelia, you want to say something, but I just wanted to just think, one of the things that we obviously learned during the pandemic is that how a good proportion, if not all of the people in the company had to work. In many cases, the whole company had to work from home, for example. And this really, to some extent, tested the efficiencies and the ability of companies to actually function. And in many cases, I have spoken to other friends from various industries, mostly from the financial services industry, of course, where it works basically. So maybe that's one of those things that we should be thinking about in terms of what else can be done. What else should we be thinking about?
I
Angelia,
agree.
you
I
want to
think.
say something? Sorry, Alison.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to build on what you just said. I think in the financial services industry, because it tends to be an industry that pays well, I think we're incredibly fortunate. As we look toward coming out of the pandemic, I think we should also reflect on the cracks that have been shown, and that not everybody has the same level of access. And as a
Yeah.
society, and as the leaders in these societies, how do we correct for some of those inequities? And certainly, this idea of investing for the future is one piece of that. But there's also other places that we believe are incredibly important to and need to be addressed for there to be fairness and justness in the world.
I think for me, I will move a little bit away from the corporate world. As you all know, I also do community work through the Lost Food Project. I think from this pandemic, what really inspired me is how people come together, to continue to support the work that we do at the Lost Food Project. In terms of, I think Bursa Malaysia also supported the Lost Food Project, but during the lockdown, that was the most critical part, where we actually, I was very nervous, to be honest, when I have volunteers and staff who were still willing to go on the ground to collect food, because I was thinking first of the safety of their own health and their family, and they say no, because we need to continue. Why? And because they actually have phone calls from people desperate, because suddenly, because of the lockdown, they have no income, they got no food, they got a family. So there was a grave concern for them, and there are people who were crying on the phone asking us if we can give them food. And so the people, our volunteers and our staff say, no, Angelia, we're not going to stop. We're going to continue. It's quite important to see, even though we had a full lockdown during the pandemic, so many corporates, individuals came together and continued to support us. There were times where we couldn't even collect food from Pasar Borong because it was on lockdown. People gave us money, and we actually bought food hampers so that we can continue to distribute to the community in need. I think during this pandemic, that also taught us or showed us that the softer touch of us human beings, that there are those who are able, and we come together to support each other so that we can continue to help those who are not able. I think that is a wonderful human spirit that we have, which I thought would be good to share with all of you.
Absolutely. Can I just add here? We've got one more comment. Government must play an active role, especially assisting not only young women, but also mature women to believe in investing, hence allowing them to create a nest egg for themselves. This has to be done relatively soon. Absolutely agree. Any comments on that? If not, I can go to our last question. This is from sorry, God.
Well, I do agree, because I have also seen people I know who have never worked before, and then sometimes it's the reality. We need to recognize that sometimes marriage do breaks down, and therefore, if you don't have the savings, you always depend and think your husband can always provide you, or your partner could always provide you. I have also seen situation where because marriage break down, and suddenly they are found in a situation where they have no income. So I think those are reality we need to accept, and that's why the more important conversation, why women need to be independent financially, whether they're working or not, that they should have their own personal savings. Because let's say you're 40 or 50 years old, unfortunately your husband divorced you and decide not to provide you an income at 45 or 50, and you have never worked before, then how are you going to get back into the workforce, right? So I think those are reality which actually shows you the importance of why we all need to start savings for ourselves, apart from family savings, your children's savings, or your household. But I think importantly, we all need to think for ourselves too. because you never know what will happen.
Absolutely. Any further thoughts on that, Alison or Ruzi?
Yes, totally agree. And as participation broker or organization in Bursa Malaysia, CJSCIMB has got the aspiration to reach out to women who are less fortunate, to give them financial literacy, to support them, to give them workshops so that they're able to make their own investment, not only into stock market but also passive investments.
Absolutely. We only have time for perhaps one or two questions before we close out. This is from Afif Zanordin. It is very clear why the gender gap among female investors should be addressed. How can brokers address this? How can brokers address this gap by empowering women's financial literacy? And what component of financial literacy is the most crucial to talk about and address? That's a tough one. Perhaps I'll leave this to either Angelia and Ruzi.
Probably Rosie can go first. She's in the
Okay.
stock market.
I think, yeah, what is the most important aspect of financial literacy is actually your interest rate compounding interest rates, which is very important, either compounding dividends or interest rate, which fights inflation, because it's no point just saving, but it's negative returns. So that education is very important, and also risk element. So when we go out to investors, we need them to understand the philosophy of investment first.
Do you know one thing that we do, because we do a lot around sort of digital and financial literacy skills, and certainly when you're doing with children, you approach it one way, which tends to be more academic. But when you actually work with adults, adults learn through experiential learning. So to provide financial education without necessarily linking that to application and usage can be a little bit of a disconnect, and you don't necessarily see that behavior change or that increase in investing. And so as brokers think about how do they want to encourage more women because these become their customers, but also encourage more women because it's good for society and good for the women and their families themselves, they should think about how do they link that training to tools or opportunities.
Yep.
I think we only have time.
We have this.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Angela. Go
Ask
ahead.
the last question. Yeah, go ask the last question.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time. We've got this from Duan Ihsan. What do you, okay, your closing comments basically, and this is quite interesting. What do you think about disposable income of women for investment? Could this be the reason why women do not quite have the investment space or capability, shall we say? Angelia.
I think we mentioned this before. Probably in most Asian household, a lot of women, if they earn an income, they goes to a joint account, where most of their male partners are the one who then decide on how to dispense those expenses within the household. So I think that's why we have been advocating the importance that the women should also have their own individual pot of savings. That will also help them to slowly grow their own savings for their own personal needs. When something unfortunate may happen, even for their own financial independence, I think that's quite important.
Any further comments?
I think it's a myth that women do not invest. Most of them probably would be investing in passive investment like unit trusts
Correct.
and so on. And it just takes dollar average investment, setting aside 10 ringgit a month or 100 ringgit a month, and that investment just grows. So you look at ASB, for example, it has got very wide reach, and government has been encouraging rural folks to invest in a very small way. It doesn't have to be into stock market, and women are those who have got diversified multitasking. So they think about education, they think about protection, they think about insurance. So what they would have done to set aside little amount of money every month. It's not about women not being educated or not doesn't have the awareness to invest, but they are most likely very passive investors.
I do agree. I think women being our maternal instinct, we tend to always think about protecting our family and our future. So like what Ruzi say, a lot of them have done a lot. Like, we talk about PRS, we talk about unit trust fund, insurance. Those are probably avenues that they have gone into. But maybe it's also because of their busy schedule, they cannot directly invest into the stock market, right? So we talk about juggling between, motherhood, juggling between homes and chauffeuring your kids to school. There's no way you can monitor the stock market to see, whether the stock is going up or down. So therefore, they could be doing it in the right way by, putting it into a pool investments to make sure that someone else is taking care of the good work of their money.
Any parting thoughts, Alison, to add to that?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that really being able to look at your own wealth and your goals and working toward those is important. And I think, in my family, when we got married, my mother told me, the goal is that your husband's money is everybody's money. Your income is your income because you want to be able to protect for whatever that might be in the future. And my family likes my husband quite a lot, but nonetheless, they were worried about my safety and my well-being. So it's something to think about.
Thank you. On that note, thank you everyone for all the questions. I only wish we had more time to answer more questions, but we've nearly arrived at the end of our segment. And before we say goodbye, I'd just like to highlight a few key points to our amazing audience. Learning about investing in the stock market is, of course, the first key step toward building the necessary knowledge and skill sets needed to start your portfolio. But start small with a sum that is affordable to you. And remember, there is no minimum amount. To help you achieve this, there are numerous learning portals which Bursa Malaysia has set up to provide the necessary training and education for the first-time investor. We have Bursa Academy and Bursa Marketplace, which caters to all types of investors, from beginners to market-savvy investors. Start now by investing and visit these portals. I take that first, and the first step that you take is to become the boss of your money and achieve financial independence. On that note, on behalf of Bursa Malaysia, thank you, Ruzi, thank you, Angelia, and thank you, Alison, for joining us this morning and providing us with your invaluable insights. We truly appreciate all the time that you've taken to be with us this morning. And before we go, I hope all you ladies have your cards ready. What are we meant to be shouting again? Our final message. I hope everyone can see. Choose the challenge.
Happy International Women's Day, everybody.
Happy International Women's Day.
Difference.
Happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Happy International Women's Day. And break the ceiling, ladies.
Yes. Thank you, Bursa Malaysia, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Angelia. Have a great day and have a great week ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good luck with your investments.
Thanks, Zaza. We would like to thank you for being part of today's Ring the Bell for Gender Equality event. We hope you found today's session beneficial and insightful. Before we leave, we would like to bring you a message from Muhammad Nasiri, the Regional Director of UN Women, Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific.
Gender equality means business, but we need to do more by what we say, what we do, what we measure, and how we lead. Take action now and send a strong signal that we are Generation Equality.
Please check out the webinar brought to you by UN Women and EU-funded program We Empower Asia, Achieving Gender-Inclusive Business Through Accountability and Transparency, to spotlight the best practices that promote gender dimension of responsible business reporting, transparency, and accountability frameworks. This online event will take place via Zoom and streamline live to Facebook at UN Women Asia on Wednesday, March 10 from 3 p.m. Malaysian time. Thank you once again. Be sure to check Bursa Marketplace for updates on our campaign. I wish you a pleasant day and happy International Women's Day.
I support.
I support.
I support.
I support. We support. We support. We support. We support. We support.
We support.
We support.